Welcome, everyone, to the FTW podcast, the wrestling world in all of its laughable glory. This is episode, I guess you can call it 158B, recorded live on April 4th, 2013, directly after tonight's Impact. We're going to be joined by a couple guys in a few seconds. You're listening to FTWLive.com. For the next hour, we're going to be talking about 2 weeks' worth of Impact, plus we'll preview tomorrow night's Xtravaganza $15 pay-per-view. It's the X Division exclusive pay-per-view. Definitely exciting. If you just think about all the returning X Division stars that we're gonna be seeing. For those who are tuning in for the first time, thanks for giving us your ear. Head on over to ftwpodcast.com for more about us and how to get involved in future episodes, as well as other ways to hear us. You can also reach out to us on Twitter, G+, and Facebook. All those links and so much more are listed on ftwpodcast.com. We even started our own Facebook group. We're opening it up to a limited amount of audience just to kind of play things out and see how things go. So if you haven't gotten your invite yet, definitely reach out to us, or you can find it through our site, apply, and we'll bring you into those discussions all throughout the week. With us tonight, we have Lou. Say hello, Lou.
How's it going, guys? This is Lou, and it's been a while, but it's great to be here.
It has been a while. I think it was Genesis. I think that's the last event you joined us before. So we also have FTWpodcast.com writer. He writes all of the Impact recaps and reactions. Nick Alexander. How you doing, Nick?
Doing good, guys. How about yourself?
Good. And my name is Garvin. I'm going to be manning the boards. I'm going to be moderating this conversation. So enough about us. Let's talk some TNA. We have 2 weeks of TNA. I don't know if you guys noticed on Tuesday when we do the regular show, we dedicated it entirely to WrestleMania 29. Treated it as our WrestleMania 29 special. So tonight, it's just all TNA. 2 weeks of TNA, including tonight's Impact Live, which we just saw, as well as the upcoming Xtravaganza. So before we get into the Xtravaganza card, let's start with what's been going on for Impact. The first thing on my list, Hogan versus Sting. There's obviously a lot of tension that they're building up. What do you guys think that they're leading to? Lou? Do you see maybe a match coming up, or maybe it's Sting have to prove himself to Hogan once again? Where do you see this going?
I hope to God it's not going to be another match between them. If I remember correctly, their last match was Bound for Glory 2011. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I can't remember, but all I remember is it was booked as a fight, and it was pretty terrible. And that's ultimately what led to the Hogan face turn. Yeah. And honestly, I just really hope it doesn't happen, but it's starting to seem like that.
Nick, where do you see this going?
I'm not sure it's going to result in anybody turning their coats. I think that Sting might go his own way to take the fight to Aces and Eights, go vigilante, if you will. He did have that interaction with Matt Morgan, so it's possible that Matt Morgan might join Sting if that's the way he goes, just to spite Hogan.
Yeah, they've definitely been teasing that something's going to happen with Matt Morgan, and it makes sense. For the last year or so, we've had this tension between Matt Morgan and Hogan. It hasn't been as obvious. They partnered Matt Morgan up with Joey Ryan, and that kind of disappeared for whatever reason. So, but yeah, Nick, I made a note that you said, that neither Hogan or Sting are going to turn coats. Basically, if they went with that type of angle, where Sting went vigilante and recruited Morgan as his muscle, as you said in the Impact review that is now on the site. Do you see that basically going up against Aces and Eights to take out Aces and Eights, or do you think it would be just a way to prove to Hogan that Sting is okay, that Sting meant well?
I could see it being a little bit of both. In fact, it might be more the latter. I think if Sting does go vigilante, we'll see the aftermath of attacks by Sting and possibly Morgan instead of seeing Sting in the act right off the bat. Then later we learned that Sting has been helping Hogan from behind the scenes to try and prove his loyalty.
So possibly like what you're saying is like a Sting just prior to joining the NWO Red and Black, slowly chipping away at everybody, or just more or less playing up the mysterious role. Is that what you're going for? Or I'm not quite sure I follow.
That sounds about right. I'm not really up on my WCW NWO stuff. That was a little before my time, but that sounds about what I'm getting at.
But that sort of sounds like what they're trying to do with AJ Styles right now, where it seems like they're both vying for position basically with AJ Styles. Aces and Eights want AJ Styles. Hogan wants him to basically represent TNA. Let's just jump to that. Where do you see AJ Styles landing? Nick?
I'm honestly not sure. I want to say that AJ will eventually wind up siding with TNA, but I think he's going to have to get this feud with Storm out of the way first. I think they're going to have to fight it out in order to hug it out and join the same team.
Lou, you agree?
Yeah, I'll say that, but I just see this whole angsty character playing out probably until the start of the Bound for Glory series. So it's going to be something that's going to be going on for a while. Essentially keeping everybody in suspense until AJ hopefully goes up for the world title.
Yeah, and unless they bend some rules, that's basically how long it's going to take for AJ Styles to, finally be put into that title picture. So, if Aces and Eights continues to push Bully Ray as their top guy and Jeff Hardy can't get the job done, maybe they do turn to an AJ Styles, but that's still, we're still months away. Bound for Glory is in the fall, is it not?
Yes, it is. October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So maybe they do bend the rules just to get AJ back in the picture. Maybe that's part of the deal. AJ sides with Hogan if they take that piece off. Styles Clash on Twitter, Styles Clash 10, he asked, anyone else think Storm may join Aces and Eights soon? And maybe that's why he was trying to block AJ from joining Hogan. Lou, what do you think about that?
That seems really, really possible. Right now, Storm's character has gotten pretty stale, and there's really nothing else going on for him. Once this feud with Styles is done, what else? Really, where else can he go? Because he's not next in line for a title push. There's no way.
Yeah, and as far as that title push goes, they've continued to tease that maybe James Storm would get involved in that, and then he never does. There's always something that blocks James Storm from actually, taking part in those title matches. Nick, your thoughts on Storm maybe joining Aces and Eights?
That would really let the air out of everybody that talked about how stupid it was right at the beginning of the Aces and Eights angle about Storm being at the head of it. Everybody was talking about, no, that's stupid. Storm's has nothing to do with them. But if Styles Clash is right, that's gonna throw a lot of people off. And actually, I could see that happening if AJ Styles does get that title shot. If Hogan does bend the rules for that, maybe that would push Storm into siding with the Aces and Eights.
Sure. And, yeah, overall, if you look back to the whole con videos where Bully explained like what was going on and how they made it seem like James Storm was involved, to basically turn that around so that he actually is involved, if they use that as like another con that they, another step in the con against TNA and the fans, I think that would come off really weak. But the idea of maybe, an AJ Styles versus James Storm for the world title, that's not something that anyone would really argue with. I think that those are two guys that we'd be perfectly happy with, in that title race.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, let's keep talking about Aces and Eights. They're finally getting big wins. They're finally doing it consistently. overall, do you think they're going in the right direction now with this group? Are they once again looking like a dominant force to be reckoned with, or do you think that there's still ways that they can improve this group? Let's start off with you, Lou.
My issue is the match that happened tonight was a relatively competitive match, and representing TNA, you had Eric Young and Joseph Park. I mean, you have two very weak links, and I would expect a more dominant showing from the Aces and Eights. This was a little bit more competitive than I would have hoped for. I was hoping for the Aces and Eights to just come out and maul the TNA roster just because they need that type of dominant showing to really establish themselves and to continue this momentum that they've been developing.
Personally, I'm fine with the direction that Aces and Eights are going. Maybe they could use more clean wins as opposed to basically cheating. But it is within the bounds of the character, so I don't have any problems with it.
Sure, I really like what they've been doing. I think now they finally turned that corner and they've made the group believable. But yeah, Lou, you're right. You have Joseph Park and EY, and EY's been a joke character for 3-4 years now. Like ever since he was holding the global championship, which then turned into the TV title. That whole ride has been basically this joke character, and now he is representing the company as supposedly the best of the best. Joseph Park is in that group too, and yeah, it doesn't really feel like they're putting the top guys in there, especially if you go back to last week when Jeff Hardy, who basically he was in that big match to determine who is the number one contender. And he said he was hurt, and he basically beat the top guys in the company. So they are really they've really turned the corner on this and flipped it. So now instead of Aces and Eights looking really weak, now we have TNA who can't do anything. Even with a guy like Samoa Joe or Kurt Angle, they are still they are just flailing at best. So do you think it's a mistake that TNA is looking so weak, Nick?
I think that's partly a consequence of just making Aces and Eights look good. TNA is gonna have to look weak for a little bit, I think. I do agree that having Joseph Park represent you is kind of a desperate move. More desperate than they really should be, because they could have James Storm help represent them. They could have Rob Terry. They could even find some way to get Matt Morgan on their side. There's plenty of other people besides Park to represent them.
Well, I was with you up until Matt Morgan. I think because of how that whole story is playing out, Matt Morgan really wouldn't fit in here. But yeah, definitely I would patch up all those wounds between Hogan and Matt Morgan to secure some wins for TNA. Cause they're at the point where they're needing to look strong right now, and they're not. So
yeah, they need to do anything within their power, like go to any measures to suck up to Matt Morgan in order to get him on their side. They're at that point right now.
Yeah. So all right, let's move on from Aces and Eights and let's talk about the X Division. Sanjay Dutt, Mason Andrews, Petey Williams, they all competed tonight in the number one contenders match, kind of, because we're doing that triple threat thing. So it's going to be Kenny King versus Petey Williams versus someone else. I don't remember who it was. Was it Christian York?
Zema Ion.
Yeah.
No, Zema Ion.
Is it Zema Ion? Okay. So, basically, Petey Williams won his shot. So, yeah, everyone was excited for this match. Do you think they lived up to the hype, Lou?
Definitely. I was actually a real big fan of this match. I thought that Petey looked great, and he's definitely going to be a staple in the X Division going forward, and returning to that role that he once held. Mason Andrews looks solid. I mean, it's great to see Harold back on TV.
Harold, yeah.
And Sanjay Dutt, I mean, Sanjay is always good. He was definitely missing a step in the last triple threat for the title, but he definitely stepped up to his game, and it was one of the more solid matches on that went on tonight.
Nick, do you agree?
Absolutely, no argument there. No disappointments. It all lived up to the hype as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, overall, I was really happy with this match. I thought all three looked great. Sanjay Dutt is a guy who he definitely works well in these situations, but for some reason it's like he's just there to help push other guys. It doesn't seem like he ever really gets that major opportunity to take the main spotlight of the match. So but I think he works well. I'm in agreement that Mason Andrews as well looked pretty good. The standing jumping Frankensteiner in the corner where he basically went from the ring to the top rope, I thought was fantastic. He looked really good. Petey Williams always looks good. I think one of the major criticisms of Petey Williams is outside of that Canadian Destroyer, he is kind of mediocre. I mean, he's not flashy like the other guys. He's not a real high flyer or anything. He's more of a mat worker. So, putting Petey Williams against Zema Ion and Kenny King, do you think that will be a good matchup when we get that, Nick?
Yeah, I think it'll work out well. I think it'll help diversify things rather than seem out of place. I think Petey will be able to hold his own against both King and Ion because he's not as much of a high flyer as say Ion is. So you got a nice range of styles there.
And I'll go ahead and I'll interject. I would say, yeah, I mean, it's a welcome change to the X division. I mean, having diversity is really what makes that division shine. I mean, otherwise Samoa Joe wouldn't have had his run in the X division.
Sure.
Another person to point at would be Doug Williams. Doug Williams is far from being a high flyer, and look how awesome he worked in the X division. So I think PD has a place, and I think he will do well in it.
Sure, but that was when there wasn't a weight limit. Now the weight limit is in place. Everyone's got to be under 230, I think. So, if a majority are, the high flyers and the fast-paced workers, that does give, an opportunity for Petey Williams to stand out, because he is different than that. So, but yeah, overall, I thought Petey Williams looked good in this match. Everyone was raving about it. They're still talking about it in the live chat right now. And, yeah, overall, it doesn't look like he missed a beat at all since he left TNA. And, some of us had the privilege of being able to see him on the indie scene. He's been competing in Clash Wrestling, which is based, right outside of Livonia, which is, just outside of Detroit in Michigan. And, he's been good every single match that I've had the opportunity to see him, there. Joe, myself, and Kevin, all from the podcast, basically have made the last 3 or 4 shows. And he's looked awesome. So yeah, it's totally awesome to see him finally back in TNA. The fans have definitely missed out on, seeing the Canadian Destroyer again. I think that made a huge impact on Twitter. Just to see the Twitter feed, explode at that point. So, before we continue talking about the X Division, because obviously that's what we're leading to, with Xtravaganza coming out tomorrow, let's quickly jump to Gut Check. Tonight was the Gut Check match. We saw Adam Pearce versus Magno. A lot of mixed reactions on the Twitter feed. A lot of mixed reactions on the live chat that we had running during the show. So let me turn it to you guys. Adam Pearce won, but do you see him getting the contract? Lou?
No, but I have this nagging feeling that it's going to be similar to a Joey Ryan situation where he gets the no and he still gets in. I think Pierce would be a great fit for the Aces and Eights. So I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to go through the process. They're going to tell him, no, you cheated. You don't deserve the spot. And he's essentially going to worm his way into the company.
Nick?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I wouldn't be so quick to say that he won't get the contract. I think there's a possibility that he might, but you're spot on with the aces and eights. I think that if he does get rejected for the contract, the aces and eights will approach him and give him a spot. But yeah, Pierce is definitely somebody that TNA needs in the company. Even Magno. While Pierce is my first choice, Magno didn't look bad. It's definitely interesting to see somebody as big as Magno do the luchador style. I think I saw a comment somewhere that Magno would be a good fit for Chavo for a feud.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. It would be interesting to watch for a while. So there's a spot in TNA for either of these guys, whichever way TNA chooses to go.
I agree.
Yeah, I also agree. I liked Magno. He definitely came off kind of slow for a lucha guy, but at the same time, it was me that said that, Nick, on Twitter. I think definitely Magno versus Chavo would be a good matchup. It would help both of them, especially if they are invested in making something happen with Chavo. It's got to happen sometime, or I have no idea why they would have brought him in. So putting up against a guy who works really well in that style, I think would work awesomely. But at the end of the day, you look at who won, and in most cases, since they've started to do this, where it was two gut check contestants facing off, it's always been the winner that has gotten the contract. But except for last week, or I'm sorry, not last week, last month with
Lady Tapa.
Yeah, Lady Tapa. So who knows? But at the same time, everyone was raving about Adam Pearce. Even when this was first announced, announced, it seemed like everyone was super excited to see Adam Pearce in the ring. I have no background with the guy. I've never seen him before. I've heard the name before. But as an introduction to Adam Pearce, I wasn't completely impressed. I wasn't impressed like I was with a Jay Bradley. I wasn't even as impressed as I was with the Knockouts match that we saw last month. So I don't know. There's definitely a place for him. He speaks very well. That promo that they played beforehand was spot on, awesome. But in ring, I think the match was too short. I think they forced it, and they made it quicker than it needed to be. I think if they let it stretch out a little bit longer, let them get some kind of reaction to the live crowd, my impression could have been better. But who knows? I think definitely they'll both work out. There's a definite bright future for TNA if they can finally do something with these guys that they're bringing in through Gut Check. So my only complaint about that match specifically was the crowd. The crowd was really quiet. It definitely seemed like the crowd was tired at that point. And let's talk about that for a few minutes. We're finally on the road. We have the way they're doing these shows is that they do one live and then they tape the next one directly after. So same day, you're talking 5-hour shows basically, that you're expecting people to be loud and excited for the entire thing. And it seems like that second show is kind of suffering a bit, that the crowd isn't as excited as they were for the first show. Nick, do you think that they're doing well on the road? Do you think this is still a good move for them?
Yes and no. On the one hand, it's working well for the talent, I think. I think they're putting on more consistently good matches with having the roster basically split up into two sets. You got one set working on the first show and one set working on the second show. It gives the wrestlers more of a chance to rest up in the intervening week between live shows, I think. But you definitely raise a good point with the crowd reaction. Sitting anywhere for 5 hours is going to sap your enthusiasm, no matter how good the product is. So that's definitely a huge drawback to having one live show and one tape show.
Lou?
I would have to agree. I think they're just going about this the wrong way. I would be perfectly fine with instead of having a live show for the first hour. I think ultimately the show itself is ending too late. I mean, if assuming that they're taping right away and they're not taking any time in between tapings, you have people leaving there probably around 11 p.m. or midnight. So I'd be in favor of them switching up from the live format, going back to tape, but only maybe an hour delay. You get what I'm saying?
So they would start taping basically at like 7.
At 7 or 6, and that way they end a little bit early, so people will essentially have a little bit more energy, and that will give it enough time for all the spoilers to come out, so it shouldn't really hurt ratings.
Sure. That's not a bad idea, Nick. Do you agree with that possibility?
Yeah, that sounds feasible.
Yeah, it's definitely something that they're gonna need to figure out soon. And I don't know if you guys have ever tried to reach out to anyone in TNA. They're usually all pretty approachable as far as like the wrestlers and the writing staff. Lagana, I had a conversation with tonight, basically asking why they weren't putting more matches on Explosion. His response was just the production time that all they are concentrating on is trying to fit as much as possible into these 4 to 5 hours that they're taping on, the show. And it's definitely, it seems to be wearing a little bit on the talent as far as, especially if they're working both shows, which not everyone is, but it's definitely wearing on the crowd, and I'm sure it's wearing on the staff as well. So, it's definitely something they're going to have to figure out and improve. And I'm sure that'll happen as time goes on, and hopefully ratings will pick up and Spike TV will start funneling them some more money. And then maybe they'll go live for every week instead of just the one. So, all right. Next topic that we have is, the knockouts. I have an issue with how they've been pushing the knockouts over the last year and a half, basically. So we started off with like this really ridiculous story that never led to anything, which was Madison Rayne and Earl Hebner. They had this kind of love affair type thing, mostly on Madison's side. Then after that was Taryn feuding with Gale and vice versa, and that's sort of leading to something good, maybe. But then tonight, Joey Ryan gets involved in the knockouts match. He's the knockouts referee now, and it quickly turned into a sideshow. Why do you think they're going in this direction? Why do you think that they're taking away what we liked about the knockouts, which was solid wrestling, and turning it into a more WWE style where it just doesn't feel as important as it should? Nick?
Yeah, I'd love a return back to the days of Taylor Wilde and Beautiful People, Hamada, and all the awesome wrestling talent we saw back then. I don't see this quite as negatively as you seem to. Madison and Earl Hebner, yeah, that was pretty ridiculous, but we got the introduction of Taryn Terrell, and now we're getting Taryn in the ring. That seems like a fairly decent payoff from where I'm sitting. I think they're just trying to spice things up, add a little something different. Like tonight with Joey Ryan, I think that was to help disguise the fact that Taryn isn't quite as polished as she could be. But yeah, while I would love to see some more just straight women's wrestling and not quite as much theater, I'm not altogether unhappy with what we're getting right now.
Yeah, and maybe you're right. I mean, maybe Taryn isn't totally ring ready yet, but one thing she does bring that not everyone does, she brings in a lot of energy. It seems like she's fighting with emotion on all the backstage segments, and when she finally blew up and attacked Gale, that was something that we really haven't seen in the knockouts in a long time. It's just someone who is into what they're doing. It's with Mickie James and Tara, and even Gale on some extent. They're just going through the motions. It doesn't really seem like they totally want to be doing what they're doing. especially Velvet. And I know that's kind of just my opinion about Velvet. It seems like everyone else is kind of still hot on her. But overall, it just doesn't seem like they're as excited as Taryn. Lou, what do you think?
And I would have to agree with both of you. Essentially, the way I'm looking at the Knockouts division, there's so much invested creatively in other storylines that the Knockouts division just isn't priority, and I really wish it would assume that role of leadership in women's wrestling that it held at one point. But ultimately, I mean, it's passable and it's still better than the Divas division, so there's that.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, if you're looking for more just pure women's wrestling, then I would suggest going to looking at promotions like Shine,
Sure.
for example.
Yeah, and overall, it just seems like there's a small minority of us who are kind of angry about, both the Knockouts and the Divas, how they're not really getting as much time, and maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's not as successful as we think it would be. TNA really wasn't bringing in a whole lot of ratings with the Knockouts taking the main event or the Knockouts getting as much TV time as they used to. So who knows? But overall, I want to address something real quick. Kyler in the live chat is suggesting that I hate Velvet, and that's not true. I like Velvet. I'm just disappointed with what she's done so far. I think overall we were all really excited and thought, Velvet's going to be the future of the Knockouts division, and she's going to bring the spark that it's really needed, and she hasn't. It hasn't been as successful as it could have been. She's not getting the reactions that you would have expected from Velvet Sky, and her ring work hasn't been the greatest. So
yeah, you do raise a good point with the energy that Taryn brings. It seems like the rest of the Knockouts have gotten into a rut. That they basically fallen into the status quo, and nothing's really shaken them out of that. Taryn hasn't had time to get into that same rut. So she's definitely bringing a lot of energy. That's good to see. So I think if they can manage to bring in a couple of newer talents, like maybe get Taylor Hendricks at the car and bring her back in, bring in other Knockouts from OVW or through Gut Check, maybe that'll be the thing that helps shake the Knockouts we've had out of their funk.
I gotta agree with that, Nick. I would actually really like to see the Blossom Twins come up. I think their work is good enough to actually, they're TV ready given the state of the Knockouts division. If you would ask me that a couple years ago, no chance in hell. But right now, why not? At least it'll boost up the division and contribute to that energy that Garb was talking about.
Absolutely. I forgot about the Blossom Twins. They're definitely ready for TV.
That was basically your last 2 weeks of Impact. A lot of cool stuff happening with Ace and Nates. Obviously, they're still pushing Gut Check, and that's still cool. X Division is finally getting a spotlight. No TV title yet, but the X Division is finally getting spotlight, which brings us to this pay-per-view that we have available to us starting tomorrow. That's TNA Xtravaganza. Is there anything else from the last 2 weeks of Impact that you guys want to talk about before we move forward?
Possible Chavo Hernandez breakup.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
I completely forgot about that.
All right. Let's talk about that then. Chavo and Hernandez, they signed a contract tonight to take on the TNA Tag Team Champions, which are Aries and Rude. And part of the amended contract is that if Chavo and Hernandez lose, they have to split up and they can't team again. Obviously, I'm super excited about that possibility, but do you guys think it's actually going to happen? Lou?
I'm really hoping so. I think the crowd is tired of Chavo and Hernandez working together. I think they're at the point where a split would be totally acceptable. And the fact that the next live show is in Texas, a split would create a lot of heat for Aries and Rude, and that would be a beautiful thing.
Nick?
I'm really torn about whether it's going to happen or not. I'm not sure if it's just wishful thinking on my part, but I really think that it will happen. I can't see Rude and Aries dropping the title again, or not again, this soon rather. And I want to believe that TNA has been listening to us about how tired Chavo and Hernandez have gotten. Personally, I think Chavo would do much better in the X division. And I want to see Hernandez, if he's not going to get a singles run of his own, I'd rather see him team up with somebody that fits his style better, fits his power game better. I'd really like to see a team of Hernandez and Gunner, for example. I think they complement each other better than Chavo does.
Yeah, and you bring up the idea of maybe Chavo going to the X division. He is under the 230 weight limit. He's currently billed at 225, so that's actually a great idea. And I'm just sitting here trying to think of what they would do with Chavo and Hernandez. Chavo would be great in the X division, but I'm not sure if I would move him into the title race right away. That's a possibility, but what I don't want to see is another RVD situation where you put a title on a guy like a veteran like that, thinking that they'll help push the division, and then they end up kind of squashing the division because no one cares.
How about instead of the X division, why not, since he is a face, why not put him up for the TV title? Have him go against Devon?
That would require them to actually have the TV title on TV.
Touche, sir. Touche.
I mean, and that's another thing. It's just there's only so much time, and for some reason they can't give enough time to the TV championship. But if we're getting as much X division action as we have in the last 2 weeks, I'm okay with that. I'd rather see solid X division matches like we have gotten, rather than seeing what Devon can do with the title. No offense to Devon. Same time, then what do you do with Hernandez? Because he doesn't really fit anywhere specifically. I can't really see him going up against, either a Jeff Hardy or a Bully Ray for the world title. But maybe Hernandez could join in the fight with Team TNA. Do you guys see that being a possibility? Maybe, Nick?
It's possible. I'm not really sure what else he could bring to that table. They've already got their own big men. They've got Magnus. They've got Rob Terry when he's around. I think I'd rather use him as a tag team wrestler. That's his forte. I mentioned Gunner. I'm not really sure who else he could pair with right at the moment, but yeah, that tag team wrestling is his forte. So I'd stick him back in the tag division.
You can also throw him together with Crimson. Crimson's held tackle before.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, Crimson's name is definitely someone that has been talked about a lot as far as our listeners, people in the Facebook group. That's a name that keeps getting brought up is, where's Crimson? What can they do with him when they bring him back? I'd rather see him in that kind of situation where he's going for the tag team championships than pushing him, say, in a world title race. At least not for a while, so. All right. So yeah, I'm stoked about the idea of maybe them splitting up Chavo and Hernandez. I think I'm with you guys as far as keeping Hernandez in the tag team race. I think that would make the most sense. That's what we're used to. That's what he's good at. Maybe you bring a guy like Anarchia back. Homicide is talking about retirement within the next year and a half. So maybe you bring him back for one last run. That could work out. And Chavo, hopefully they can do something productive with him so that, they're actually using him for something good. If that's building stars, then that's building stars. Or if that's actually putting a title on him to really take advantage of the name value that he has, they need to do something. Because right now it's blah. So, all right. That was 2 weeks of Impact. I really have nothing else to really pull out. I think we talked about basically everything that I had on my list. So, we did skip over the Bully and Brooks segment. Not totally cool. I'm sorry. I'm not totally clear on what they're trying to do. They're obviously dragging that out. So lots of rumors on maybe Brooke is going to eventually join Aces and Eights, and this is a whole con on her father, as well as the opposite, that they're just dragging this out to keep Hogan in the loop kind of thing. So, let's hold off on talking about that until we see how things progress. Just because we could speculate all day on that. So, all right. TNA Xtravaganza, from the description on their site. Since TNA Wrestling began, has been defined by the X Division, a group of high-risk aerial flyers who do whatever it takes to win. Xtravaganza will match TNA's top X Division wrestlers against some of the top free agents around the world, and will also feature some of the promotion's most popular X Division specialty matches, including the Ultimate X match. It's going to be available tomorrow on TNAOnDemand.com or through whatever pay-per-view provider that you have. It's only $15. It's going to start tomorrow at 8 o'clock. That's the first showing. It's 8 o'clock Eastern. And it's going to be available all month. So, really exciting. Just because the X Division is something that we've wanted to see more of for so long. And, RVD holding the title didn't really do that for us. Now that they're bringing these $15 pay-per-views, hopefully this is a step in the right direction, and they'll see that people are really interested in seeing this again. But there's some really cool names on this card. Let's go ahead and we'll just read the card real quickly, and then I don't think we want to go into predictions because it's a taped event. We're not going to hide that fact. So, if you want to see spoilers, you guys have access to that. But overall, this looks to be a really cool card. We have Doug Williams and Kid Cash facing off against Tony Nese and Rashad Cameron. Chavo Guerrero taking on Robbie E., which kind of ties into what you guys were saying before, maybe putting Chavo in the X Division. This would be a good test for that. Daniels and Kaz versus Sanjay Dutt and Petey Williams. In the X Division Escape Steel Cage match, we have Christian York versus Matt Bentley versus Alex Silva versus Sam Shaw, Lance Dorado, Puma, and Jimmy Rave. We've also got the Ultimate X match with Kenny King versus Zema Ion versus Rubix and Mason Andrews. A no DQ match, the final meeting ever. Basically, this is the last televised match for Jerry Lynn. He officially retired, I want to say last month. So, Rob Van Dam versus Jerry Lynn. They always put on really good matches. They have such a huge history together. So that should be good. And then in the main event, we have the Battle of the X Division Champions. Basically, the two guys that we all loved when they held the title, and that's Austin Aries versus Samoa Joe. Nick, let's start with you. What is the one match that you're most looking forward to on this card?
I'd have to say it's a toss-up between the Ultimate X match and Aries versus Joe.
That's where I'm at too. I honestly, it's the thing is I'm a huge fan of Jigsaw. I really love Chikara wrestling. So, but yeah, it's definitely for me. It's between those two.
Yeah, I can't really pick one. Daniels and Kaz versus Sanjay Dutt and Petey Williams should be awesome. I guess if there was one match that I'm not looking forward to, it's the Escape Steel Cage match. I was never a big fan of that match. Last time we saw it, it was a mistake. It just didn't work the way it was supposed to. But then you have the Ultimate X match, Kenny King, Zema Ion, Mason Andrews, Rubix. That should be awesome. But yeah, I'm with the overall thought in the live chat right now. And that's Austin Aries versus Samoa Joe. Those are two guys that had put on quality match after quality match. They're two world title contender quality guys. I think by far that's the one match that I think most people are looking forward to. And just because they also have a huge history, even going back to ROH, that they put on great matches together. So, one match that you guys aren't looking forward to. I've already said mine, which was the Escape Steel Cage match. Is there one that you're not looking forward to, Lou?
Chavo versus Robbie E.
Why?
Because it's Robbie E. And TNA, like all right, he is not terrible. He isn't bad, but he's so limited by his gimmick that I feel bad for the guy. And honestly, it's like a horse with a broken leg, just with teary eyes. I'm just gonna have to shoot it. And just essentially that's how I feel about this match. It's just gonna be so bad.
Nick?
I'm definitely not looking forward to Chavo versus Robbie E, much for the same reasons that Lou stated. But just to differentiate myself, I'm gonna say RVD versus Jerry Lynn, and that's solely on RVD because I've just gotten tired of him over the last half a year or so. I'm sure it'll be a great. I just don't have any excitement for this match.
Yeah, RVD is a guy who we've often criticized for that he can't put on consistently good matches. One week he'll be awesome, and then the next couple of weeks he'll be awful. But at the same time, like his entire run as X Division champion, I can't really remember a bad match. It seemed like he was pretty good throughout that entire run. So I don't know. Maybe he turned a corner and remembered how to wrestle, and this might turn out well. But at the same time, I'm trying to remember back to the last time that they competed, and yeah, it was an okay match. It was an okay match to their standards. I think overall the RVD versus Jerry Lynn, I think that has enough build up that history really makes this into a watchable match and a match that you want to see. But as far as compared to everything else on this card, yeah, it's got its nostalgia. But outside of that, it's going to be kind of filler. The Chavo and Robbie E match will also be kind of filler. I don't see that going a long time. But yeah, Lou, I'm right with you. Robbie E is a great worker, definitely limited by his character. Which is a real shame. But, seeing Robbie E versus Chavo, that might show us what Chavo can do in the X Division, despite this not, being outside of who we'd like him to face. And really, you put Chavo against anyone else on this card, and I think that would be a really good match. But just because it's Robbie E, it's not as much. And I'm just reading the live chat, kind of agreeing with that sentiment that, if it was anyone else other than Robbie E, that match would be pretty good. So, overall, there's a few names on here that are no longer with TNA, like Kid Cash. We don't see Doug Williams anymore. We're gonna get some returns from Matt Bentley, Jimmy Rave. Rubix is a guy that we haven't seen since last year. He was a part of that X Division tournament. Alex Silva and Sam Shaw are both, they both were winners in the gut check. So, I mean, overall, is there a standout guy here that you're most looking forward to seeing either return to the company or is there anyone on this card that you think will be the standout and you think that, will put themselves in a position to be signed? Let's start with Nick.
Prior to the night, that would have been Petey Williams, but since he's, we're assuming he's officially back with the company now. I'd probably just say Tony Nese.
Okay.
Tony Nese was with the company for a little while during that period where Sorensen got injured or he's left the X Division. Tony Nese was one of the guys that TNA picked up to try and flesh things out in the interim. He put on a few good matches with Zema Ion. He looked really impressive, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in an Impact ring again.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge fan of Rubix, but Nick kind of stole my thunder. I think one of the surprises of the night is going to be Tony Nese. He's been working a lot of the shows up in the Northeast with, I believe, Pro Wrestling Syndicate. And, yeah, he's always been a solid worker, and I'm really looking forward to what he can do. I mean, in addition to that, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Bad Influence, so anytime they're tagging up, it's always awesome. But I think the obvious answer that I think we've overlooked is just Austin Aries, just because it's Austin Aries. So yeah, I'm all over this show. I'm ordering it. I'm hyped.
Nick, are you ordering it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, from what I want to do, I'm also gonna order it, but I'm not going to order it tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be traveling. We're going to be watching WrestleMania at Joe's house. I'm traveling down Friday right after work, so I won't be back in front of a TV until late Friday. So I'll miss most of it, which is unfortunate. But I'll catch it. I'll catch it over the weekend probably. So, but yeah, everyone that I've talked to has pretty much said the same thing, that they're really excited about a lot of these matches and that they plan on ordering it. And I hope people do. You know, I hope people take advantage of only having to pay $15 to see a great card. Everything on paper, for the most part, outside of like a Chavo and Robbie E or an RVD versus Jerry Lynn, outside of that nostalgia factor, this is a great card. So yeah, it's only $15. It's available starting Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And, hopefully it's something that people latch onto. TNA recognizes that and maybe brings that into the overall story. Considering that it was taped a couple months ago, do you see anything happening on this show that could impact what we see on TV? Real quick, Lou.
Unfortunately, not really. I mean, the big thing would have been an X Division title change, but obviously this is taped so far in advance, it's not going to happen. Maybe with certain reactions, we might see some people come in and get signed. That's really the only impact I can see.
Yeah, depending on reaction, we might see Alex Silva and Sam Shaw in an Impact ring faster than we might have otherwise. But yeah, I don't see this really impacting anything major.
Yeah, those are two names that I would definitely pull up, especially in the tag team division. I think we have a void right now that they're, outside of Kaz and Daniels, there aren't really any other contenders, especially once we get rid of Chavo and Hernandez, which hoping that's what they do. But yeah, there's definitely some opportunities there, and I know Alex Silva and Sam Shaw have been tagging in OVW and have been getting good reactions. So yeah, that's definitely cool. Petey Williams is a name that we have kept dropping tonight. He's obviously on. He was on tonight's Impact. He's also on the One Night Only. He's officially signed with TNA. We don't know anything about the deal. There were some rumors that it was just a per appearance deal, which might be the case, but it seems like it's more of a long-term thing. Maybe for the full year, maybe for 2 years. So definitely we should be seeing more Petey Williams on TNA TV, which is a great thing. So definitely be excited about that. If you want, go check out our YouTube channel. We've got his exit speech and his final match in Clash Wrestling. We were at the event, Joe, Kevin, and I. We all went to Clash Wrestling's Back to the Future 5 event, and it happened last Saturday. So the exit speech has gotten a lot of views. That story got picked up by all the news sites, basically, as them looking into whether or not Petey Williams had signed a full contract or not. So yeah, definitely check that out if you want to see a great match and what he actually said in that exit speech. That's on youtube.com/the FTW podcast. And real quick, we're going to spend the next 2 minutes, right before we close, with one Ask FTW question. We got a few questions in the live chat that I was going to bring in, but we just don't have enough time. So let's go to this one real quick. You guys have 30 seconds each. Kyler in the live chat asked, does anyone else wish they would sign both of the gut checks? For example, a Lady Tapa and Ivelisse from last month. Look at Adam Pearce and Magno from this month. Do you think that they should start making it an option to sign both, or do you think that they're better off only signing one now? You guys have 30 seconds. Lou, we'll start with you.
I'm going to say no, for the simple fact that if they did, it would just start to look like TNA was just handing out contracts to anybody. Ultimately, by forcing a hard decision on the fans, you make the signing feel that much more important.
Nick?
I've been wanting to see both contestant signs since they started showing two contestants because they've had a lot of quality contestants, but ultimately lose right, giving them away to both competitors all the time would just ruin gut check. I think it should be kept open as an option for like every once in a while, like such as Ivelisse and Lady Tapa, but otherwise, I think it should just be one per gut check.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I like the idea of signing both, but considering what they've done with the gut check contestants so far, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to sign two people to just shove them off to OVW for forever, basically. I think Christian York is the only one who consistently got matches since he won. So, you know, instead of just signing one that you may or may not ever see, you're going to sign two people that you may or may not ever see. I think it would definitely lose its steam really quickly. So, and yeah, it does force the fans, especially the live fans, to choose a side and make it apparent who they want to be signed. We didn't get as much of that this month as we did last month. But I think it's just more of the road schedule. So, but yeah, overall, TNA is going in a great direction. I think I can speak for you guys in saying that. I think everything that they've been doing, for the most part, has been pretty stellar. If you do go on Twitter, make sure to add us at FTW Podcast. But we've been following the feed, the feed for the hashtag Impact Live, and over the last 2 months, it's like nonstop updates, and that's something that we really haven't seen in a long time. Like that's something you don't see except for like Raw. SmackDown doesn't even get that. You know, where you have more than 20, 30 updates in a minute kind of thing. So, that's a really good sign. It's not really appearing in the ratings at all. They're still kind of stagnating, as far as those ratings go. They're still hovering around 1.2 thereabouts, which again, we can go into that conversation about how that's such a false way to look at things, but it still is a way to look at things. So, but yeah, overall, Impact, you guys agree that it's going in the right direction?
Definitely. They have made strides, and it is showing, and hopefully they start to see some rewards.
I can't agree more.
Cool. Well, overall, let's close up. Blue, where can people find you?
You can just contact me on Twitter at LouTubeWins.
All right, and Nick?
You can find me on Twitter at Atomic Deke. You can also look me up on FTWpodcast.com. Look in the blog section. I try to put at least one article per week in addition to the TNA results, which were just put up just after the show. Go check that out. But that's about it.
Speaking of that, real quick, are you going to also do the recap for this pay-per-view?
Yes, I am.
All right, cool. So make sure to check that out. That'll be available tomorrow, right? You're going to watch tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. So overall, that's it. That's the show. Go check out FTWpodcast.com for more information about us and how to get involved in the future. On our new and improved site, like Nick just said, there's lots of blog posts. We try to get at least 6 to 7 new opinion articles out a week. On top of that, we're also doing results. We have a live blog for both Raw and TNA Impact. You can also get results for every other show that WWE is doing, as well as the video and results for TNA Explosion, which is sort of hard to find. There's only a few sites that are making that available. So definitely check that out. We even have a recap of Saturday Morning Slam, if you can't make that. Diva Jill has been filling in for us on that. So definitely check it out, FTWpodcast.com. And thank you everyone in the live chat. You guys were great, as always. We record every episode of FTW Podcast FTW Podcast on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, -5 GMT. We also record Saturdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time at FTWLive.com. So we hope to see you again soon. We'll see you later. Bye.
Good night, everybody.